Peter B. Collins. News and comment. It's Friday, September 30th, 2016. This free daily news and comment podcast now available on YouTube. Share that information with your friends. They got the app right there on their phones. Makes it easy. As you may know, I spent most of what passes for a career working in the commercial radio industry here in the United States as an announcer, a talk show host, a DJ. I started in Chicago when I was 19, and I guess it's over now. I'm not sure. But the last time I was on a broadcast radio station was in 2012, working at KGO here in San Francisco. And so I have a lot of concerns about what happened after Bill Clinton deregulated the broadcast industry as part of his campaign fundraising system back in 1996. And he unleashed a consolidation that has ravaged the industry. It has squeezed out the competition, as limited as it was beforehand, and reduced the most powerful and influential stations to ownership by about 5 or 6 companies. And some of those companies are so over-leveraged that they are just avoiding bankruptcy on almost a daily basis. The company that used to be called Clear Channel, now iHeart Radio or iHeart Media, they just applied for an extension of another $500 million of their line of credit, which is closing in on $20 billion. And their cash flow is down, their ratings are down, and their ability to compete long-term is in deep doubt. Likewise, one of the other top 5 companies, Cumulus, which is primarily a radio broadcaster, they bought up all the old ABC stations and many others around the country, and they are avoiding bankruptcy on a daily basis. They hired a new CEO who has bankruptcy experience, but so far she hasn't had to use that. And the company remains on the brink of an impending financial disaster. So here comes to the rescue the FCC, and its chairman, Tom Wheeler, is a longtime veteran of the broadcast industry and the cable industry and the wireless industry. He is a corporate tool of the lowest order. And he just greased the skids to open the doors to something I predicted 20 years ago when Bill Clinton signed the 1996 Telecommunications Act, and that is that this would inevitably lead to relaxation of the foreign ownership rules, because we've run out of schlubs who are willing to buy broadcast companies in the United States. CBS Radio has put itself on the block, and there are no buyers. It's one of the most profitable radio chains left. But it's an industry that has matured, peaked, and as people move into other media in the digital age, radio is, and it hurts me to say this, the killer app of the last century, not this one. So what the FCC has done is allowed a company that is foreign-owned to acquire an American broadcast company. Now, I'm not going to go take you through the legal weeds here, but essentially, they are lifting the rules that have been in effect since 1934 and allowing foreign ownership, mostly at the corporate level. Now, they're saying that a foreign entity could be a partner in a local radio or TV station, and once they establish their credentials with the FCC, they could go on to buy properties apparently on their own. But it is mostly aimed at the corporate level, where a big European operator like RTL, and in full disclosure, I've done some consulting work for RTL, but they could come in and buy a stake in iHeart or Cumulus and ultimately end up operating these stations. Now, we have a precedent that Al Jazeera and Russia Today operate cable channels, but cable is not regulated by the FCC in nearly the detailed way that broadcast facilities are. And so this is something that I have been concerned about for a long time. I think that foreign ownership of our media is a very dangerous idea. And while the corporate media in this country, sells us out on a regular basis and really often performs fascist functions, as I'm about to detail, I would prefer having the ownership here than in Stuttgart or Brussels or London. Now, about that fascism that our media flirts with on a regular basis, I am pleased to see that Adam Johnson, who writes for the media watchdog group FAIR, got a piece published in The Nation this week, and I'm linking to it in the show file for this podcast. It's headlined, "The 14-Minute, 60 Minutes Infomercial for Cold War." And I've been railing the past 2 weeks, each Monday. I report into you, my listeners, that I watched 60 Minutes the preceding night, and I was appalled at this two-part series. Apparently, Adam Johnson caught part 2 and didn't know about part 1. But he skewers it, and I hope you'll read the article because I'll just lift a few quotes from it. The 60 Minutes piece was mostly based on Philip Breedlove, the former Supreme Allied Commander of Europe and a superhawk who has often exaggerated the threat posed by Russia. And that's exactly what he did on this 60 Minutes piece, and it went unchallenged. David Martin just set up one puffball question after another and created the illusion that Russia has looser standards for a first-strike use of nuclear weapons than the United States does. And that is flatly false. But by describing the standards that Russia has articulated, they created the impression that we're the good guys who've never used nuclear weapons. Oops. We're the only country on the planet that's used nuclear weapons. But still, we're the good guys because we haven't used them since 1945. And 60 Minutes painted this picture of Russia under Putin, ready to push the button. It was really scary. It was riddled with fear. And I credit The Nation and Adam Johnson because they went to my old buddy Joe Cirincione. He's president of the Plowshares Fund, a public grant-making foundation focused on nuclear weapons. And Joe's quoted here, "Focusing on the threat from Russia minimizes the actual threat by downplaying the provocative posture we have and are pushing in newly threatening directions." And he refers to the B-52 that I've described that was a centerpiece of the visuals of this 60 Minutes report. He said the B-52 exercise depicted on TV is one example of the nuclear saber rattling that we're doing that is actually more provocative than the similar behavior we condemn in others. And the writer here, Adam Johnson, says that the 60 Minutes piece passes off policies of both countries that are shared as something unique to the Kremlin. So I think this is a very important analysis, and I give Adam Johnson credit. He goes a little further than I did in my comments and really nails it in terms of the principal interviewees in this segment. And in addition to General Breedlove, they trot out Admiral Cecil Haney, who is head of the U.S. Strategic Command. And they describe him as low-key and cerebral before asking the following softballs. Is it riskier today? When you look at what you would work to deter Russia, do you have to get inside Putin's head? Does it concern you that an opportunist like Putin has a nuclear arsenal? And Johnson doesn't reference a thing that I think is critical to this report on 60 Minutes. They rewrote the history of the coup in Kiev and the expansion of Russia into eastern Ukraine and its claim of Crimea. So I'm very happy to hear my comments echoed and amplified by The Nation. I hope you'll read this piece. I think it's really interesting. And it closes by commenting on the $1 trillion modernization plan that Barack Obama has initiated. He's the guy who said he wanted to get rid of all nuclear weapons when he became president, but he has signed off on this plan that will develop new so-called low-yield tactical nuclear weapons. It's a very dangerous development. And what is fascinating is that Hillary Clinton appeared at a fundraiser a few months ago. I think it was in March. I'm sorry, it was in February. And this appears to be similar to what happened to Mitt Romney in 2012. At a private fundraiser, somebody rolled video and then leaked the video. Well, we're told that this audio from the Clinton fundraiser has been hacked and made available by the D.C. hacker group. Now, I don't know where it came from, but it has been verified. And Hillary Clinton makes some very interesting remarks both about the nuclear arsenal and about hackers. Let's start with the nukes. All right, she expressed doubts whether the U.S. should go forward with Obama's trillion-dollar modernization of its nuclear forces. This is an issue that she has remained largely silent on in public, and I am delighted to hear it. As you know, I've been very critical of the hawkish positions held by Hillary Clinton, and while she doesn't want to politically separate herself from the Obama administration, she told an expert, a former Defense Department official who worked with Bill Perry when he was Secretary of Defense and who now is active in promoting nuclear disarmament. His name is Andrew C. Weber. Weber was at the fundraiser, and he asked her the question about, what she was willing to do about this. He asked whether she as president would cancel a cruise missile program, which he called a particularly destabilizing, dangerous type of nuclear weapon. She said, and this surprises me, "I certainly would be inclined to do that. The last thing we need are sophisticated cruise missiles that are nuclear armed." All right. Then she went on beyond the question to warn of an emerging nuclear arms race naming Russia, China, Pakistan, and India. Well, I'm glad she is concerned about those issues. She went on to praise Bill Perry, the former defense boss, saying that the more he spoke out publicly and joined with Republicans to try to curb nuclear arms, the better off we'll be. She said this is going to be a big issue. It's not just the nuclear-tipped cruise missile. There's a lot of other money we're talking about to go into refurbishing and modernization. Do we have to do any of it? Well, she answered that question, yes. But how much do we have to do? That's going to be the tough question. So Bill Perry answers the question in an op-ed today in the New York Times. He says he offers some solid ideas. Scrap the nuclear-tipped ICBMs, these missiles that we keep underground and maintain, ready to launch in 30 minutes. He said he also wants to trim Obama's so-called modernization program and try to limit it to practical as opposed to kind of deterrent effects. So he says scrap the ICBMs. He also says the government it says the government is also planning to replace nuclear-armed submarines and bombers. If we assume the Defense Department is critically analyzing the number of systems needed, this makes far more sense than replacing ICBMs. Now, what he's just described here is the triad that Donald Trump is ignorant of. Now, maybe somebody will explain it to him. I think that while I am in favor of, getting rid of all of our nuclear weapons, this is an important discussion. And it is fascinating to hear Hillary Clinton's policy, which I support. I want her to push it a little further, but I'm happy to see she's moving in this direction. Now, Hillary also commented in this same tape from the February fundraiser about hackers. And she said that she would be far tougher against foreign nations that hack into American computer networks than, presumably, the Obama administration. And she said that what she wants to do is give those who are messing with our systems a dose of American offensive cyber weaponry. She said they have physical assets that are also connected on the Internet, so they have to know we would retaliate. So that provides a certain level of deterrence. Now that begs the question, how much offensive cyber warfare are we already engaged in? We know about Stuxnet. We know a little bit about the budget of the new cyber command that is offensive in its orientation, but we don't know what they're up to. And I don't know that we need to provoke more international hacking incidents by going on the offensive or going further on the offensive. I assume we have a very robust, aggressive, offensive program. But, of course, that's secret. And if you told me, you'd have to kill me. Now, meanwhile, on the hacker front, Vice News today has an interesting report based on an independent journalist who investigates cybercrime and security. His name is BrianKrebs. And Krebs has been a victim of hacking himself this week. His website was hit with one of the largest denial-of-service attacks on the Internet. And get this, it was carried out by what's called a botnet army of compromised closed-circuit TV cameras, surveillance cameras. And this raises a whole new area of vulnerability, because when you look at all of the devices that we have wirelessly hooked up, I've got a printer that's wirelessly connected to my computer right here in the office. And the wireless system there is very easy to hack. These devices are shipped with standard passwords, and they're not changed unless somebody really cares about their own security. So Krebs has recently been a victim of swatting, which is when somebody sends an ambulance to somebody's house or the cops. He has had heroin delivered to his home, and this week he was hit with the distributed denial-of-service attack. And he said that it came from these botnets. And what's interesting is the NSA has floated the idea that these devices, particularly things that are in your kitchen, or my cable TV box now allows me to give voice commands, and I refuse to activate that because I don't know where my voice goes when I'm not talking to the TV. And the NSA has said this is a whole new area it plans to exploit. And we know from Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe's testimony that the NSA has intentionally maintained very low security standards in the United States to enhance its ability to come and go in our digital world whenever it wants. And Krebs says security is a huge problem with these devices. The majority are shipped with default usernames and passwords set at the factory and never changed before they're connected to the Internet. And this is like, for example, in the airline system, we've got all this hardened security at our airports here. But if you go to a little airport in Bali, Indonesia, or in, pick your place, some obscure location where there's limited security, you can get on a plane, get inside the security perimeters, and penetrate upstream. And that is the same model that I would use to describe the potential for hacking using these kinds of wireless devices. Also, I want to pose a question to listeners and see if anybody knows. Listener Barbecue Man emailed yesterday after hearing the podcast, and I described that Yahoo's hacking, blamed initially on a state actor, is possibly coming from a criminal gang known as Group E, and that is according to the cybersecurity firm InfoArmor. Barbecue Man said, well, that sounds a lot like the Equation Group, which was identified by the Russian security firm, the Kaspersky outlet. Anyway, if you have any information that links Group E, the criminal gang online, with the Equation Group, email Peter at peterbcollins.com. I'd like to see it. Every day I pause for a second and thank the people, who support my work here at the Peter B. Collins Podcast. People like Alice Carlson, Justin Keene, Craig Schroeder, Linda Gray. I appreciate your support, and I mention you to try to encourage others to join you. Here we are, the last day of the month, and I've been honest with you. I've lost more subscribers than I've gained this month. So that means my revenue is down, and I got to reach into my pocket to pay the phone bill and the internet bill and that kind of stuff. So if you can help out, I would very much appreciate it. Come on over to peterbcollins.com, click menu, then click on Become a Subscriber. It takes you to the sign-up page. You can choose $5, $10, $20 a month. Our $50 annual subscription can earn you a bonus book, and I very much appreciate your support. As you may know, I was born and raised in the great state of Ohio, the land of the Buckeye. And for years, Ohio has been a critical battleground state in the presidential elections. But it appears that the Clinton campaign has written off Ohio, assuming that Trump will carry it. Hillary hasn't been there in a few weeks. They're still running some TV ads there. despite the fact that Ohio was crucial to both of Obama's victories. For example, Obama held 5 events in September of 2012 in Ohio. But because of Trump's appeal to those opposed to trade, young voters, and because the state is primarily white, 68% I think is the current number, it appears that Team Obama has said, well, we're going to win without Ohio. And I don't know their exact delegate math for the Electoral College, but I'm concerned that this could be a very risky and move that will be regretted later. Meanwhile, the Clinton campaign is trying to further exploit Donald Trump's obsession with Alicia Machado. She was the winner of the Miss Universe pageant when he was running it, and she came up in the debate. It was very careful baiting by Hillary Clinton. It was a scripted item that she inserted very close to the end of the debate. And I heard Newt Gingrich talking about it on a right-wing radio show this morning. And the Republicans do have some legitimate gripes here, because Hillary Clinton is taking a big risk to raise these issues about sex, about treatment of women. And so far, it's working to her advantage, partly because Trump took the bait so far down his gullet, hook, line, and sinker. He was up at 5 o'clock this morning, New York time, tweeting out more bullshit about Alicia Machado. And he's trying to get his followers to believe that she appeared in a porn tape, allegedly anal penetration. She has appeared on the cover of Playboy magazine. She did a nudie shot for Playboy Mexico. She also is accused of 20 years ago driving the getaway car when her boyfriend shot at a relative. But who the hell is Donald Trump to trot out the dirty laundry and run a smear campaign against a little person like this? Now, I realize she's been injected into the campaign by Team Clinton. They say they're not paying her. She volunteered to do this. And it gets more and more laughable because the guy who is the protector of morals and a surrogate for Donald Trump is Rudy Giuliani. Giuliani had an affair with his wife while he was mayor of New York. It was very embarrassing, very public. And he actually married the woman that he was stupping while he was previously married. And so what floated today coming from Rush Limbaugh is what Trump says he should have said Monday night but didn't. And that is they want to attack Hillary because she participated in the demonization of the women who came forward claiming that Bill Clinton had had sex with them, or in one case had raped her. And it's true, Hillary Clinton did participate in going after Bill's bimbos, doing everything possible to discredit them. And so it undermines her appeal as a woman challenging sexism and misogyny coming from Trump. And nobody wins when we trot out the respective infidelities of Bill Clinton or Donald Trump, say. But this is the race to the bottom, the how low can you go, the limbo moment, not Limbaugh, limbo, of this American political campaign, and I don't know how low and dirty it will go. The latest blast from Newsweek is that Donald Trump, and they've got proof, sent executives to Cuba during the embargo in 1998 to explore business opportunities, and they spent $68,000 doing it, which is a clear violation of the Cuba embargo law. Trump saying, well, I never went to Cuba. That appears to be true. And it remains to be seen if this has any traction with the general public. But Rachel Maddow did a great job pointing out last night that when Gerald Ford blundered on Poland back in 1976, he lost a lot of votes from Eastern European immigrants. He made a statement in a debate that Russia didn't dominate the Eastern Bloc nations, and everybody knew that wasn't true. So Trump's foray into Cuba may not matter in Peoria, but it's sure going to matter in Miami. And the numbers are pretty close still in Florida, and that could be critical to a Trump loss in the Sunshine State. A couple of quickies here about the new strongman, loudmouth president of the Philippines. His name is Rodrigo Duterte. This week, he threatened to withdraw from the long-term U.S.-Philippine military pact, saying that he will end joint military exercises like the one scheduled for next week and will pursue closer ties to China and Russia. Quote, I am serving notice now to the Americans and those who are allies. This will be the last military exercise jointly, Philippines-U.S., the last one. Now, it's hard to know if this is a foreign policy pivot on the part of the Philippines or if it is just personal pique, because Duterte is a lot like Donald Trump. He's willing to say anything. And, of course, the outlandish things that he has promoted in his run for president since he's been elected is just the vigilante killings of drug dealers and drug users. And on return from a trip to Vietnam yesterday, Duterte compared himself to Hitler while cutting in half the number of people, Jews, that Hitler is accused of presiding over the extermination of. And he said that he would be happy to slaughter 3 million Filipino addicts. Now, he says that his public death threats against drug suspects are designed to scare them into stopping selling and using drugs. But 1,300 people have already been killed. Some by police officers who just kill them point blank, others by vigilantes, and there's no due process, no constitutional rights, no court proceedings. This is just summary execution. And I do think that this is the kind of thing that Donald Trump is capable of and would have no difficulty pursuing if he becomes president. Let's take a little trip to Alabama, where Supreme Court Chief Justice Roy Moore has been suspended for his efforts to block gay marriage in Alabama. The Court of the Judiciary issued the order today suspending Moore from the bench for the remainder of his term. Now, they didn't have a unanimous vote to impeach him, to remove him from office, but they did reach unanimity to suspend him for the rest of the term, which is essentially the same thing. His term is running for a couple more years to 2019. And at age 69, he is not permitted under Alabama law to run for re-election. So the 50-page order said, we do not accept Justice Moore's repeated argument that a disclaimer in his memo negated the reality that Chief Justice Moore was, in fact, ordering and directing the probate judges to comply with his order and block marriage licenses and same-sex marriages in Alabama. And, quoting now from an attorney, to suspend Chief Justice Moore for the rest of his term is the same as removal. So, that's progress, and it does appear to, at least I hope, it might discourage him from a run for governor, based on the notoriety of this current event. Also in Alabama, a very important breakthrough. As you know, I have supported the work of Roger Schuler, the blogger and independent journalist who has exposed the corruption and the hypocritical sexual affairs of Republican leaders in Alabama. He started by covering the Don Siegelman railroad case. Siegelman is still in federal prison. But I've linked to this story from the Alabama Political Reporter. And it tells us that based on anonymous sources, that Governor Robert Bentley, who is under fire because of an alleged affair with an advisor named Rebecca Mason, instructed top law enforcement agents to investigate Roger Schuler and another blogger who's an attorney in Alabama named Donald V. Watkins. That's right. He illegally ordered state resources used to retaliate against individuals in this political battle. And he authorized the use of the Patriot Act tactics. including search engines for law enforcement that allow agencies to get the most private aspects of a person's life: driver's license, Social Security, criminal history, property ownership. If you really know how to use these resources, you can turn a person's life upside down. Well, Roger Schuler and his wife Carol have seen their lives upside down and inside out. He spent 5 months in jail on a bogus contempt charge for libel that was never proven. And her, I believe it's her right arm, has been rendered almost useless for the rest of her life by a sheriff's bust in Missouri that may or may not have been instigated or influenced by people from Alabama. And this article is mostly about Don Watkins, saying that Bentley first targeted him 3 years ago using banking regulators, and they have really used every available weapon against him. But Watkins kept publishing. And the short shrift that they give to Roger Schuler reads like this: Schuler has written numerous articles on Bentley and Mason. In August 2015, he wrote, Rebecca Caldwell Mason, a married mother of 3 from Bentley's home base of Tuscaloosa, was the governor's mistress in an affair that sources say raises a number of possible legal issues. And so I give Roger Schuler a lot of credit for his courage. His reporting is all proven to be accurate. And we know that Governor Bentley illegally ordered state law enforcement to harass Roger Schuler, and we know he's been harassed. We just need to connect those dots. And because Bentley has pissed off local sheriffs and district attorneys over gambling issues in Alabama, another blogger, Ricky Stokes, is speculating that local prosecutors may use their grand jury authorities to pursue the wrongdoing of Governor Bentley and Attorney General Luther Strange. So it's possible that the lid of the cover-up has been pried loose. And in Alabama, you can't count on justice. You simply can't. It's a cesspool, a swamp of corruption. But when it's Republican on Republican, that might produce some interesting results. Thanks for joining me today for my News and Comment podcast. You're free to share this far and wide, and as you know, it's now available on YouTube. Did I mention that? I'm Peter B. Collins.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails.